PSA: always cross your legs on water slides. There's a new hot coffee lawsuit making the rounds. And a lot of people think it's hilarious. In an OMG people will sue for anything sort of way. A woman visiting Disney went down a waterslide and experienced an injurious wedgie. Sounds funny, right? Suing over a wedgie? This woman had lacerations. Likely permanent damage to her internal organs. Her bowel was protruding through her abdominal wall. According to the suit, when she stood up to get off the slide she had blood pouring out her. These were serious injuries, but every single article and story about the suit calls it a wedgie. And you know what? She is only suing for $50,000. Edit: see Edit 2, and mostly wants Disney to make safety shorts available and warn guests more clearly about the risks and safety protocols. Almost every story about this calls it a painful wedgie and barely mentions the extent of her actual injuries. Comment sections everywhere are making fun of her. Of course. So ladies, cross your legs on water slides. There's other things to take away from this, especially around how our culture treats female pain and gynecological injury. But ETA, yes, this happens to men too. Though vaginas make these injuries much more complicated. Men can get injuries in this fashion where their pelvis literally splits open. Book injuries. Waterslide safety is no joke. Especially the vertical drop extreme slides. These injuries for men and women are more common than I'd have thought. Almost all of these injuries involve people who were crossing their legs and trying to follow directions. But who hit a bump, were jostled hard, or went airborne, which made it impossible for them to maintain position. Stay safe. Edit 2: the actual amount of her suit is unknown at this time. It is at least $50,000. I remember going to this one very steep waterslide with my younger sister. Even though we were wearing shorts, the force of water hurt so bad that we were joking about losing our virginity to the water. My heart goes out to this poor woman. I have no desire to read the details of this poor woman's injuries. But it's always good to be cautious when you hear news stories about frivolous lawsuits. Would the person really have paid massive legal fees and put themselves through years of stress to sue a company over something completely boneheaded? There's normally more to the story than what's being reported. This is the damage that gag orders can do. For example, the original woman who received burns from the hot coffee from McDonald's was on a gag order. Essentially, McDonald's went around and spread fictitious shit that made her life a living hell until she died. And she was not allowed to speak about it. Meanwhile, McDonald's was completely at fault for the horrible damages they caused her. These fucking companies are evil. My roommate in college got a horrific infection from the big side at Typhoon Lagoon. Her doctor said it was actually pretty common given the force of the water as you go down. So yeah, proceed with caution, confounded face. Jesus fucking Christ, new fear unlocked. I remember when I was younger watching a truly terrible show called 1000 Ways to Die and One Death. That always stood out to me was a guy cannonballing off a cliff a certain way which ended up shooting water up his colon in a way that made him bleed out or something like that. Always something I vaguely kept in back of mind when cliff jumping. Now thankful for this PSA about water slides. When I was around 12 I went down the highest water slide on the African continent. I followed the instructions exactly. I am not joking when I say I was thoroughly anally douched. Totally humiliating. Totally fucked up, and not to mention how unsanitary. I remember reading in some facilities in Germany that offer faster water slides. Safety instructions that women are not allowed on the slide for a risk of injury. So this should be a known problem for water parks. This woman's injuries were totally preventable and now she's even ridiculed for it. Your hot coffee comparison fits. 50K isn't anywhere close to enough. Injuries like this aren't fixed. They permanently alter your body, and she could very well have extenuating issues from this. Not to mention the pain and suffering. Modern waterslides have become entirely too dangerous and prone to injuries. It is so sad this woman has to suffer this. More investigation needs to be put on root engineers to ensure no one sustains injuries. And F people making fun of a horrible injury like this. I was telling my son just yesterday about a traumatizing waterslide injury I sustained as a young child. I wasn't bleeding but had terrible pain and couldn't walk well for days. I came hobbling over to my parents. Sobs racking my body, and when they understood what had happened, they laughed. I don't think they really understood just how much pain I was in, so I don't blame them. It does sound rather silly, but I can easily see how it could be way worse. This was back in the early 90s. So this is pretty horrific. Don't think I'll be going down waterslides anytime soon. I wanted to comment that the original hot coffee lawsuit against McDonald's was legitimate. They had been warned multiple times that their coffee was too hot, and the woman had very serious burns to her body. Combine that with a top that was secured. People like to label it as frivolous. It wasn't. When I went through water survival school so that I could work on offshore oil platforms and drilling rigs, we were strongly warned about the risk with water intrusion. If we had to jump off of a platform or rig into the water, we were taught to cross our legs at the ankle, squeeze our knees and thighs together tightly, clench your pelvic muscles super tight, and to cover your face, clench your jaws, and pinch your nose shut. Otherwise, you risk serious and fatal injuries from the water squirting at high pressure into your orifices: anus, vagina, nose, mouth, eye sockets. Through my company, I have been involved in a controversial thing that gets written up in the news over and over again, a couple of times a week for the past 2 years. When you know the ground truth, you see how ridiculous most reporting is. Every single article is around 50 sensationalist bullshit that is known to be incorrect. But they either don't bother to look it up, or don't want to report it. The goal isn't truth if it ever was. The goal is to skirt the truth as closely as possible, allowing them to focus on the sensationalist crap that gets clicks. My dad had his shorts ripped on a waterslide at Dinky Lame local water park. Sounds funny, okay, it kinda was, but it does give more credence to the idea that, yeah, these things can cause serious injury under the right circumstances. I am officially adding this to things I didn't know to be afraid of. OMG, this is awful. These types of waterslides terrify me, and I will never go down one again, but every time I've ridden one, I've been told by the attendant to cross my legs and keep them crossed, and I never fully understood why, and had I known this could happen, I never would have ridden one. I always came out with a painful wedgie, but holy shit. If my safety on the ride is determined by an underpaid and overworked cast member and my own ability to understand the assignment and keep my legs crossed, which can be difficult when scared, and with the force of that particular type of slide, then maybe it shouldn't be a ride IDK. When you read these stories, it's important to remember which side pays millions in PR. Of course, the victim is going to be made out to be overreacting. Poor lady. I hope she gets more than the 50K. Wow, and they knew this was an issue. She is only suing for $50,000 and mostly wants Disney to make safety shorts available and warn guests more clearly about the risks and safety protocols. Yeah, the McDonald's lady sued for very reasonable things. And Mickey D's decided to litigate rather than settle. The huge number she got was lunatics damages that the judge had to adjust down because McDonald's made the jury so mad. The comment section on that site is disgusting.